Welcome back to another episode of Black Girls Texting. It's your girl, Sade. Hey, bitches.
It's your girl, Charles Pinky.
I didn't know we were singing and I'm not prepared. It's Glynn. Oh, I gotta sing.
That was melodic.
Welcome back to another episode of Black Girls Texting. It's Sade, joined by Bedside Brat and Chelsea Pinky. Hello, ladies.
Hey, hey.
Hey.
How goes it?
Girl, I'm just been tired, child. I don't know. I can't stop sleeping. I'm so tired.
Can't stop sleeping?
Cannot stop sleeping. But I've been pulling like all-nighters, so that makes sense. But I just
for work or party?
Literally for work. I was up till 3 a.m. working yesterday.
Damn, you should have stayed
With
hourly.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Because I don't even get my benefits till like 6 more months.
What do you mean?
Like my stocks and shit don't kick in. My shits don't vest.
Okay, your stocks, but like you have insurance.
Yes.
She's like, I don't get benefits.
I'm not
like,
even insured for another 6 months.
Yeah, I was like, that sounds really fucked up and like
sounds
not legal. Yeah, I was like,
On read or reply.
Anyways, I'll jump in, kicking off the read or replies. I'm going to reply to my new self-care routine. I can't remember if I've said this before. I feel like I mentioned
You showed us your calendar.
That I had my calendar, but I'm actually implementing it, and it's lovely. Reading, relaxing, taking time for myself, going on walks, exercising, taking care of my body. Who knew it would be
Love that.
so nice. So yeah, I'm enjoying that. And just, I feel like I can't remember if I say this a lot on the show or if I say it more to you guys like in the actual group chat, but I am like obsessed with my therapist.
Yes, you say it a lot.
Okay, I'm like actually obsessed with her, and my insurance transitioned over, so like technically I'm kind of uninsured right now. Like I'm waiting to get all my paperwork, and so her company was like, sis, like what's going on? And she was like, don't worry about that, we gonna get it she was like, I know you switching jobs, like we'll figure it out. And I was like, you a real one.
I love it. You've sent her number so many times in the group chat, and I've not jotted it down. And
that's not my problem, because I'm
going to ask you to send it again.
Self-care.
I'm going to ask you to send it again, please.
I am gonna quickly jump into my on red, which is kind of connects to the Hotline bling, so we'll circle back to it, and I'm sure you guys are gonna echo these sentiments, but obviously leaving this whole Roe v. Wade debacle on red. It is, a hot topic right now, and while I'm no expert in the legal jargon, it seems that it's an opinion, which then would need to be like actually implemented. So TBD on that. I think there's going to be like a clear decision made around June. But I've just been listening to a lot of podcasts. I actually listened to a daily episode that tells the story of Jane Roe. That was super interesting. And
I watched
a lot of different takes.
I forgot what it was on. Something, maybe like an ABC thing or something, of the interview with Baby Roe, which was like wild because the woman actually ended up having the kid that was like at the center of the Roe v. Wade
interesting
thing. And she like hates her mom, never spoke to her. The woman died and they never met, and it was like all this drama.
Well, her mom
was like very
she has a lot of
troubling.
trauma. She was basically raped her whole life, like her whole childhood.
And then didn't she switch sides? Like
then
she became like pro-life.
It was just like
pro-life,
a hot mess. But aside from her story, I found it very interesting to learn that a lot of this ruling, like potentially being overturned, people utilize similar tactics that were used for Brown versus Board of Education. So these weird like ties in terms of like civil rights, women's rights, and then of course the whole conversation around like, are you black first, are you woman first? Like it's always like this thing on my mind. Like when I'm talking to people, I'm like, wow, like I love this energy that you have, but like I hope you have this energy, especially in thinking about how this impacts poor women, women of color, especially Black women, immigrant women, like not just what you look like. So I'm going to encourage any listener to think about that. And yeah, I am nervous for what's going to happen, but then at the same time, you know, and the things I've been listening to and a lot of what I've been reading, it'll be interesting to see how this ends up like playing out state by state if it does get overturned. And that's when I think, you know, even people that are super pro-life are like, that's really when the battle begins, because you're going to have all these states that still allow it and all these women fleeing and blah, 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 blah. So it's disappointing. It definitely shows a lot of the aftermath of Trump. And it's super divisive. But I just hope that anyone listening who's like been torn with decisions around having a child or keeping a child, you know, feels supported in whatever decision they make, because it is your decision ultimately to make. And it's already hard enough to make that decision. So I feel like it's extra shitty for it to be such a heightened subject that makes you feel even worse. So definitely feeling for anyone out there. And yeah.
Yeah, I also think it's interesting because people always like, you know, during elections, you have those people who are like, it doesn't matter who you vote for. And voila, it did,
Mm-hmm.
because Trump was able to appoint 2 Supreme Court justices, and now look what's happening.
Yep.
So it actually did matter, as much as we didn't love Hillary, or who was running with Trump again? Was it Hillary?
Yeah, Hillary.
No,
First
Hillary
time.
was first time or second time. First time was with
First
against
time
a long.
Hillary, second time
Oh, first time
Biden.
Hillary. You're
Oh,
right.
I mean, yeah.
Yes, because he only got
Elected.
1-term president.
Yeah.
1-term
Be
failure.
a bum, 1-term president.
Yeah. It's kind of confusing because that doesn't happen that much. You know, it's only when you really suck. But anyways, so that's just another reminder that it actually does matter.
Yeah. Or like voting at all, when you're like, oh, what's the difference gonna make if I just don't do it?
Yeah, definitely makes a difference.
Yeah.
But from what everything I've been reading, listening to, it sounds like it is gonna get overturned federally. So that is interesting. It sounds like there's gonna be like states that nothing changes, probably like New York, California. States that like it kind of changes, like there's just like limitations. Like I think Florida is thinking about or discussing, if it gets overturned, that basically you're just gonna have to get an abortion sooner. So at an earlier stage,
15 weeks.
Which is not terrible, because it turns out that most abortions do happen at an early stage anyways. So many women will still, it'll be the same for them. And then certain chunks of America, you won't be able to get abortion at all, which is interesting because I saw this like conspiracy post and I wondered what you guys thought of it. So basically they showed a map of everywhere where you won't be able to get an abortion, and it was like these very white states. And they were saying, well, if you think about the trajectory of America, it's becoming browner and blacker and more of color. So they are trying to stop predominantly white states from shrinking their population.
That's tea. But I on a episode of, because it's
kind
just
of
wild.
interesting.
It's just wild.
I'm like,
think
is
about
this some
it.
grand plan to like make the country white again?
Bruh. But then this one episode of the Daily too, that they were saying that really what these sanctions are, it's gonna attack like poor Black and brown people. Like those are the people that are gonna not have access to abortion primarily.
But like yes, poor people, but geographically poor white people is what I'm seeing when I look at a map.
Yeah.
Aside from like the really like rural, you
Yeah.
know, Black Americans that live not in cities.
Right.
But yeah,
I don't
saw that and
know.
I was
You
like,
never
I saw that as
know. You never
well.
know.
could be a grand
Awesome.
plan. But the thing is, if someone
Grand plan.
if someone wants to get a fucking abortion, guess what? They're gonna get it. They're gonna throw themselves
They're
downstairs.
gonna figure this shit
They're gonna
out.
figure this shit out. They're gonna drink bleach. They're gonna do the crazy shit that women have been doing
Right.
before they could get abortions. So
And we'll find ourselves back in that issue why they had to legalize it, because people were doing wild shit.
right, you
So,
just putting
like,
people in danger. So
it's wild. What a time.
yeah.
What a time.
Yeah. What a time. But I guess I can go to my reply because it kind of goes off of yours. My job actually announced that they, you know, obviously there's no decision that's been made, but in the event that it does get overturned, my job's going to be paying for any sort of travel needed for anyone that needs to get an abortion. So I
Love
thought that
that.
was really cool. And like it wasn't like a taboo topic. Like we have these cut to the chase, like all company meetings,
Mhm.
and like they spoke about it. So I thought that was cool. And I guess my real reply is I booked a therapist. So I'm gonna be starting a therapy, ladies.
Self-care for everybody.
It like was so difficult though to find like a Black woman that took my insurance that
Yeah.
was near me. It was not easy. It was like
Are you going in person?
You're going in person?
I think initially it'll be virtual, but I think eventually I would want to go in person.
No, that's nice.
Yeah, I think yeah. So yeah, it's not as easy as I thought. So maybe we should think about making it easier.
Yeah.
Did you
And
use like an app or like a friend or?
I used apps, I used friends, and then I wasn't finding anyone. So then I just went on ZocDoc.
Mm-hmm.
And I just like looked up the difference between, I forgot the acronyms, but like, is this person a social worker? Is this person a counselor? And I wanted like and a therapist, a doctor. So I found that. But a lot of people don't go to therapy with actual doctors, which I don't know what the difference is. I didn't do the research, but anyways. And then leaving on red, I was gonna say the cold weather in New York City when I was there. I was like, what the fuck is this? Get me out of here.
It's cute this week though.
I'm so happy that it's finally spring is finally springing, because I was like, this is not spring in New
You're like,
York.
this is miserable.
Barely.
Yeah, I was like, this is what is this weather? But I'm gonna leave on red that Kevin Samuels died.
Oh, that shit is still really wild to me.
It's really wild. Sade is sipping her water. I really wanted to have him on the show, but thanks to Sade, we never reached out. And now we'll never get the opportunity. And it's just really sad that it's not sad. It just makes you just remember to treat people well, because it is sad that like his kids and his family members are probably seeing all the things on the internet. Like the man is dead. Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Oh,
I'm pretty sure. Yeah, seeing all the very mean things about his death. I'm not sure how I feel about those things. I always think it's sad if someone dies, but who wasn't like physically violent to like people who can't defend themselves. I said physically violent. Yeah.
But still, I messaged Sade about it too, because I saw people posting a lot. And I feel like we've talked about this on the show before. Your thoughts on this, Sade, when people make these like public, like, you know, in memoriams to like celebrities or people that they don't know. I don't know what
you cannot call it a memoriam if it is just a repost. She told me that this girl we know wrote a memoriam. So I'm thinking she wrote like, may you rest in peace, but she just like reposted an article about him.
And she was like,
dead.
wow, this is so crazy. Like, I don't know how to feel about this one. Like, this is complicated. This is a complicated loss.
Yeah, I would say that's just a comment.
Okay.
A memoriam, I would imagine to be more like grandiose. Like,
but I feel like you were saying outside of that, you said some shit like, I mean, people die every day.
Sure do.
But to me,
But it's
I found it
sad
very shocking.
that
I don't know that
people
it was
die
like
every day.
sad. It is sad that people die every day, but I found it like super shocking that this person that we just was super polarizing, that we saw online all the time,
Who's
so
young,
present,
56,
is just now gone. Like, that's kind of crazy if you think about it. Like,
and
he
it was
everywhere all the time.
He wasn't
and now
like
he's gone.
sick or any, like, you know what I'm saying? It was like a
Yeah,
shocking death.
On the dead. I heard some things. There might have been a little blue pill involved.
Viagra.
Yes.
They can't like sue us. A little blue pill.
I
Right.
don't know.
Everyone knows what the
Famous
pill
about
is.
how the boy died. But
Well, today they released
he was
the
young.
911 call.
Oh,
yeah, I saw that,
shit.
but I didn't want to listen to that, so I kind of just
Yeah,
skipped
those
over
things
it.
freak me out. Oh, fuck.
I wanted to listen to it, but I was like a teenage child, and my fiance is away just for the day. He went to San Francisco. He's coming back
That's
tonight,
gonna
and
scare you.
I took the car.
You took
just
the
took
car.
the
You
car.
kept the car.
No,
What?
I took the car. I went to the mall.
Oh,
I was like,
okay. You were like,
but anyways, I was being
Yeah.
very careful, like not being on my phone, playing around on Instagram. But yeah, I took the car, and then I got home and I FaceTimed him. Or no, by the time I got home, he FaceTimed me to tell me that he got to where he was supposed to be.
I was gonna say he got an alert that his car is on the go.
Well, so his car would have alerted him, but his car, they're like changing the battery or something. So we have a loaner. So I've been driving a Cayenne. And I kind of like it.
I love it.
I just feel safer in a truck.
Let's say you're ready to put some kids in the back.
Yeah. But yeah, I took the car. I didn't say anything. And I was
for a joyride. Yeah.
Okay, wait. So no one heard the 911 call.
Nah.
Oh, I didn't hear it. Yeah, no.
But everyone say, I'm not really giving this much energy, but all I'm seeing online that people are saying that he was like with a potentially like a call girl or something.
Oh, I didn't hear that.
I thought he was with a girl that called into the show.
No.
Oh.
I don't think so.
I mean, I wouldn't know. I really like, I see it. I kind of like skip through, but one person posted like, oh, the irony, like you like spend all this time like degrading women and then you like pass away alone with like someone you needed to hire.
She has to pay.
Yeah.
Well, here it is.
I know he was with a Latina and he always said they were better than Black women. Well, non-Black Latinas.
3, 4, 1. But man, I don't want you to disconnect because something can happen while you disconnect now.
Yeah, but I'm saying I need AED. I need, if they have one downstairs, I need to get them up here now.
Are you able to get a neighbor, ma'am?
I'm going to hang up with you. Hang up with you, or you call them in the front desk and give me an AED right here now. He's turning blue. I cannot
Oh,
wait.
shit.
3, 4.
That's also really annoying that when you call 911, they're just like calm about shit. And it's like, hurry the fuck up. Urgency.
Yeah.
The man's dying.
He's
Do
blue,
something.
bitch. Damn, that's
He's
OD.
turning blue. She's like, hey, I'm going to hang up the phone and you call someone to come up here.
That's OD.
Yeah. And he was
That's
only
okay.
56. That's the sad part is, you know, he was young.
Oh, God. Well, that makes me think of my reply. There's just been a couple things I've been watching and listening to recently. One is the show on HBO called The Staircase. You know, I love
started.
Ooh,
It
you
made
know
me
I love some
think
true
of that.
crime.
Wait,
Yes.
what's the staircase?
Oh, it's this
Don't ruin it.
crazy case that like a lot of true crime podcasts I listen to cover a lot. And then there was this long documentary on Netflix about it a few years ago. Essentially, this man, his wife fell down the steps and died. And that's how it opens. And he makes this like frantic 911 call.
Oh, and he pushed
And
her.
that's what we don't know. A lot of shit happens. A lot of shit comes out. He was like wrapped up in like local politics in Durham. And at least from what I've seen thus far, they're trying to say that like, you know, the town and the city was against him or whatever. But then he also had he had a secret lifestyle and a whole bunch of shit.
Oh wait, sounds like you're giving me too much.
Yeah, I was like,
Yeah, stop.
slow down.
Okay.
Reel it in.
That's it. That's all. It's
Yeah,
a good
as soon
show.
as we get off the phone, I am going to finish.
Okay,
the
I want to
episode and
watch
then do
this.
the next
Yeah, you
one.
should watch it. You should watch it. Colin Firth is in it. He's like such a good actor and such a little cutie. And that's the one thing about shows like this.
Fell off. That nigga fell off.
He fell off, but I still have a soft spot in my heart for him.
Oh,
Shows like
okay.
this where people are supposed to be like bad, but then you like I'm I still have a soft spot for him because I'm thinking of the actor and like his previous roles and stuff.
It's
yeah, it's scripted.
Scripted.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
I thought it was
yeah,
like a
yeah.
doc.
And the woman who plays the wife is also like a bomb ass actress. I can't remember what her name is. She has like a very interesting mouth.
Google it.
Yeah. The other thing I was going to reply to though is this is maybe controversial. I know the girls canceled Sabrina Claudio, but the new album is mad good. So fucking
Why they
good.
cancel
Why
her?
they
She said
cancel her?
something about being about black people.
She
black...
said some, yeah, she said she,
Isn't she
I mean,
black?
nah. I mean, she's a white
Oh.
Latina from Miami. I think she's like
Let
Cuban
me
and Puerto
look because
Rican.
y'all love calling everybody a white Latino.
Oh, wait, let's go ahead, do the skin color test. See if it checks out.
Put the paper back.
Sabrina.
She said,
I
she
mean,
quoted,
if Giselle from Potomac is
You know, I
black,
don't think she's
Oh
black.
my
Claudio.
God.
And now that I'm reading The Vanishing, I'm like,
oh yeah, this woman is white.
Yes. She quoted like some lyrics from an ASAP Rocky song, like he a jiggy nigga, something, something. She said nigga. And then apparently maybe somebody said some shit to her. And then she wrote back and was like, it must suck being a black girl with no ass. And maybe there were a couple other things that were said. I'm sure there were a few other statements. I couldn't find them
yeah, she
all.
probably said some shit, but like
Yeah.
I still listen to her. She got some hits.
Yo, the music is so good. It's such a vibe. The
Yeah.
album again is called Based on a Feeling. It's
Oh,
so
So you're gonna
good.
promote it?
Wow,
Oh.
yeah, promoted it. Wow. This podcast is new to me. It's not very new. It's called Sounds Like a Cult. It's about movements and people within the zeitgeist that get cult-like followings.
Yes.
But it's not like culty shit. It's more like pop culture things or
Like
like
the
random
Beehive?
shit. They have an episode on stan culture. They have one called The Cult of Academia and what it's like when people are wrapped up in getting like degrees and what it's like when people become obsessed with their professors. They have one called The Cult of Trader Joe's. They have the Cult of Elizabeth Holmes, the Cult of
Who's in that
of
cult?
CrossFit. I
are
mean,
obsessed with
I'm
her.
into Elizabeth Holmes too. I'm very intrigued. by
Like
her.
you like her? That's weird.
I find her fascinating. Like I will watch anything that she
Yeah, but that's not
does about her.
cult.
But that's a cult like following. Like she's a cult like grip.
I feel like cult is like
on-
when you like the person,
Yes.
not just when they're like
Yes,
interesting.
for the most part. But it also I think means like having a cult
This like
following.
obsessive.
Yeah, like intrigue. Like she sparks
Yeah.
intrigue for people that make you want to keep watching. That doesn't mean you like them. She has one that was like the cult of Elon Musk.
I'm Googling that.
Her last little thing I've been watching a bunch is Party throwing Megan Thee Stallion up in the air.
Yes.
I've watched that shit about 50 times. That shit is amazing. When he got her with the one hand where her leg slipped a little bit and he just like rejiggered it a little bit and she wrapped that leg around. That was amazing. That
I
was
didn't
amazing.
realize they were back
Strength.
together.
It was such a display.
When did
I
they
don't
ever
think
break up?
broke up.
They never broke up.
Didn't they break
They
up?
going strong. No, never heard of it.
I never heard that
Hold
they broke
on.
up.
Nope.
And you know, I'm
Google that.
misinformation.
Google that now.
That said, I don't have a
Yes.
on-
Okay. Sorry. I'm
Oh.
sorry. I have to finish this. We haven't heard much from Megan Thee Stallion and Party since her graduation, and folks began to speculate the two called it quits on the relationship. Meg seemingly removed all of Party's photos from her Instagram page, and while he still has plenty of memories of them on his own page, people have been making some interesting speculations about the end of their time together.
No, I don't want to
Yes.
hear nothing like that. I do remember when he got her like some gift for her graduation. People were saying that she looked underwhelmed by the gift.
People are so fucking crazy.
It did. I remember it being underwhelming though, low key. I can't remember what it was now. It was not memorable, but you know, whatever. It was expensive still, regardless, whatever.
Sorry, you don't have a reply. You were saying.
I don't have a on
read.
but speaking of allegations and rumors, I did just discover that the person who spread that nasty rumor about Rihanna and ASAP Rocky, so ironically, he's this Black fashion blogger that lives in Paris. And I met him when I was studying abroad in Milan back like 10, 15 years ago, child. Maybe, no, less. I'm not that old. And it was just mad funny when I met him because he was like being very odd. He was like, you know, you just got to fake it till you make it. He had me standing outside of fashion shows, pretending to be on the phone and walking back and forth, trying to make people like think I was important. And I watched him do all of this shit for attention. And then he really like got the attention that he wanted, started to become like a voice in European fashion. and like advocating for like Black and brown people in the space and queer people. And then he spread this rumor about Rihanna and Shorty with the shoes, and now he's canceled.
Amina Muaddi.
Amina Muaddi. And I was like,
Shorty with the shoes.
damn, I was like, wow, look how hard they fall. He really worked to get there, but it was not surprising that he would fall victim to some clout. And now he's probably looking at a couple lawsuits, hefty ones.
Wait, but how were they able to trace who started the rumor?
Because he fucking tweeted it, bro.
He tweeted it.
Oh, he should have deleted it.
Yeah,
He needs
I
that
guess that-
Elon Musk edit button.
right. I know the girls are happy that that's
Right. We've gone a lot of places. So if you're
lot.
still keeping up, we're going to transition over to the hotline bling. I'm going to keep it very brief since this has been a very
robust.
I think they like when it's robust.
intro. But basically, my hot
Oh my God.
hey, my hotline bling is about how it's connected to the whole Roe v. Wade conversation. And I was having this like back and forth conversation in another group chat I have with a friend who is
Is it a white man?
Who is this person?
Not even devil's advocate. It's just like
The same person that's always doing this?
White
Yes.
men love to play
Oh my
devil's
gosh.
advocate.
Just
The
like-
devil doesn't even advocate.
it's just difficult. But something that was interesting was we were kind of having this conversation around like that each side will never see one another. Like he sent me this tweet like, oh, like the reason we'll never get anywhere with this is because people like refuse to see the other person's side. And another friend texted me on the side and was like, I should never need to see the other side of this conversation. Like, I don't want to debate about it. I don't want to have discourse. Like, it's my body, period. And I was like, this is really interesting how it could be so polarizing, especially once you start pulling in like religion and like, yeah, it just made me think like, can you even like have healthy debate about something like this?
Don't we want them to
like-
see our side? So I'm curious about your friend's response.
She was like, I'm not entertaining.
She's
this
like, I don't even
conversation.
care
Like,
about
I
this
have a uterus.
conversation.
You don't. I don't give a fuck. Good night.
My thing is like,
Fair.
I just don't get the desire to want to put your beliefs on other people. Like that's my thing. Like I will never get an abortion for myself, right? Unless it was like life or death for me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see in my current state, right? Because I want to say that because once you say something and then some shit happens and then they're like, well, remember you said in my current state, I don't
Girl,
see
fuck
that.
them.
Right. But like I'm
But
just
where
saying,
you
like,
are in life right now.
where I am in life / my religious beliefs, like
Mm.
my just how I was raised, like what I was told, my thought process, I don't believe in it, right? But like that's for my body. Who am I to tell you what to do with yours? Like you do what you want to do, like, and you do what feels right for your situation. Like you don't know people's situations like through and through. Like I don't know. I just find it weird to like try to enforce your beliefs on someone else's body.
Right.
Like, like it's their body that they're going to have to deal with for 9 months initially and then possibly another 18 years. Like it's weird.
Yeah, I listened to the daily with all the people that are like super pro life, and one that was really interesting was this woman who's from China, and she was like, I know the one child policy is very different, but she's like, I was given a chance, and all these people talking about like, the unborn child being given a chance, and I'm like, that's dope and like great, and if we lived in like a ideal world, like that would be amazing. But I'm like, I get confused in terms of the moral conversations where there are so many people like that's another human, and then I'm like, but then what like where's the flip once they're born? And then
Right. Where's
like,
the protection?
right,
Where's
I'm
the
like, where
assistance
is that? But then my friend was being like, oh well, that's different because then they believe that the obligation is on the parent, and I'm like, but
The
how
parent
can
already
you-
told you that they cannot do it.
right, I'm like, I don't get it. I don't get that.
Do you know anyone who's arguing about the health things, like the people who have is it called ectopic pregnancy?
Atopic.
Mhm.
Are there people arguing that they shouldn't be able to have abortions?
All the like clips and things that I've heard of people that are pro life have all said Like the
except
woman is in
for-
danger. That's the only.
There are some states who will also be banning those or making
saw
those
that,
illegal. Yeah.
But like even like the rape and
Very
incest
few.
people are like, there are people who are a product of rape and they go on to live great lives.
Yeah,
and I'm
that's
like,
just
why
insane.
the fuck is that up to you to decide?
Yeah, it's wild.
Like how fucking
Everybody is
traumatic
just
that
up in
is.
everybody's business, period. All over the
Right,
place.
like,
Every
if you
single
don't-
fucking way.
Every way. If you don't believe in abortion, here's the solve. Don't get one.
And I know that it's not. I know it's a generalization that it's people that are like uber conservative, like super, right wing. But I'm like, I find it very interesting that it's this whole like moral high ground, but then they'll be the first ones being like, all this crime and welfare. It's like, where the fuck do you think that shit comes from? Because I don't have no
Bro.
money to pay for these goddamn kids.
Period. I'm
Right.
like, you want to talk about the danger of the mom, putting the mom in danger? Like, women can have kids and then they can't support the kid, and then where do they end up, and where do they live? Like, I don't know.
Right.
The health issues and risks up against the lives of these mothers go beyond the womb, is what I'm saying. I don't know. It's wild.
Vasectomy campaign. Ready to
Yeah.
implement it. And
It's wild. It's
ask
really
your
wild.
male friends, please just ask them, like, out of curiosity, if you haven't before. I'm saying this to you guys, and I'm also saying this to listeners. Just ask them if they would get a vasectomy, because every single one of my male friends told me no.
Yeah, all my friends would say no, I would think.
And they said because they want to have children the quote unquote like normal way. And I was like,
it's
what
also not 100% reversible all the
no,
time.
it's not even in reversing it. I'm like, you could freeze your sperm. Yes.
Yeah, but things happen with that. Things happen when people freeze their eggs. Like,
I know. I feel like
might
it
not even be your
like
sperm.
for some folks.
The freezer might break down. Then what? You
And
have
then you
no
got
sperm.
nothing.
I'd rather
get that.
that. Shit.
It's a lot of risks doing that.
I don't know. I want to put the onus on the men. I really do.
Speaking of which, have you guys ever experienced a cream pie?
Yes.
No,
Same.
I used to really like those back in the day.
I do not
Starting
let
to.
people finish inside of me ever at all. No.
Speaking of which, in
no,
Hotline Blings, as a part of my what I'm calling field studies on this app, I put this in the
You
chat.
mean being a
hoe for the summer. I met an OnlyFans
no
model,
labels.
and he's been sending
Maybe
me
that's a
a
positive
lot of
label.
things, so many types of videos and clips and things.
like? Describe.
Just
Can we put this on the Patreon? This is going to be a long ass episode.
no, I mean, all right, I'll mention it.
We don't
'cause
even
I
have a
wanna
guest this
rob the
Yes,
the
we
audience.
do.
We do have a
Oh, we
guest.
do?
Yes.
Oh, I thought this was a by ourselves episode. That's why I've been rambling.
No, I was
mean, we
very
could make it about
surprised.
ourselves.
Who to guess?
She's actually in sex education, Dr. Sara Flowers.
Whatever.
But
I
don't
can
edit.
also talk about this on another Hotline Bling because it's good for the listeners.
gonna
and
forget
I don't
it.
want to. I know I didn't want to forget, which is why I said it now.
Just say it.
I'll just say that the
Go
man
ahead,
texted me-
Lord.
I'm not gonna
Don't
say
let
much.
this party
I'm just gonna
pooper
say
ruin it.
that one thing he said to me in the text was he wanted to see my asshole blink.
I thought
and
it was wink.
Wink. I think it was
yeah.
wink.
Yeah, I'm like, it doesn't blink. It
Same
winks.
shit. I don't even know what that means.
This is
What
not
does that
sexy. This is.
Oh, wink. Okay, that's
Yeah.
right. Wink. What does that mean though?
Like
Like
when
it puckers out?
yeah, no,
Like when
I'm
you're about
thinking,
to poop?
tighten and loosen.
But why would that
tighten and
happen?
Loosen.
I'm supposed to squeeze it.
Oh, I guess if
You're
when your
squeezing
body's
it.
tense, when your body's tense, like
Yeah,
and then
people
loose.
will do that. People will tell you to do that.
Oh,
I've actually had someone tell me to do that.
I've never had someone tell
that's
me
so
to do that.
interesting.
But maybe that's a
I
new
never-
thing.
I didn't know
Basically,
what
they
that
were like
meant.
fingering my butthole, and we were going like a couple fingers at a time, and
Ah!
squeeze, release, squeeze, release.
No,
and
but
then
he was
would
like,
add more fingers.
I want to like. He was like, actually, yeah, it's graphic.
Okay, graphic Patreon. If you really want the graphic tee.
I mean, I literally just thought about getting fingered in the asshole.
He was
Okay,
like, I want to
also-
see it slide in and out that pussy. I want to see that
Ah!
wink. What do those things have to do with each other? I don't understand the connection.
He's gonna fuck you in the butt.
No, he was talking about the pussy. So then, how do we get to the butthole?
Oh, because maybe if he's
It's
hitting
just
it
a
from the back,
visual. It's just a
he's hitting
visual.
it from the back, and you're like,
That's what I'm imagining. But then that would you have to, yeah, I don't know.
Okay, well, recently I found out that two of my
not me
friends
feeling like we
mothers listen to this podcast. So
I was about to say, I
Hey,
feel like
moms.
children listeners, and I'm like, oh, not the kids, not the
I
kids.
know.
but you know what? Let's normalize sex. You know, everyone has
Exactly.
That
it.
is true. That is true because they over here talking about, oh, you're gonna make the kids gay and this, that, and the third, and but now it's just shenanigans.
How are you gonna make them gay?
If you talk about like anything like sexual gender identity,
Oh,
Yeah, fuck that
That's
shit.
the
I mean, I've
whole,
thought
like,
about this
why doesn't
recently.
everyone just mind their damn business?
When I say wild shit on the show, I've just been like, I've grown, and
Right.
it doesn't really
I'm grown and I get fingered in the
matter.
butt.
Yeah, like it just doesn't matter.
25 years old, you know.
Like when this
She's
book
so
drop, I'm about
funny.
to be talking about even more shit, niggas.
Oh.
And that's word to the pen.
My good sis, that's a black girl doing shit.
So we all let you know we have a special guest coming on. Honestly, I'll be very surprised at however this episode is edited since we all went our rant previously in the group chat. But we are so happy to be joined by Dr. Sara C. Flowers, who became the Vice President of Education at Planned Parenthood for America in 2018. Dr. Flowers is an advocate for evidence-informed practice and emotional intelligence in education. Her research focuses on fidelity and adaptation of sex education curricula and dismantling sexual and reproductive health disparities, serving youth of color, and strengthening abortion access. In this role, Dr. Flowers sets the vision, priorities, and strategy for sex education and training at Planned Parenthood. She is the Planned Parenthood spokesperson for sex education, providing contextualizations and grounding for the nuanced ways sex education works to support and progress our Federation's vision and mission. And yes, I read her bio word for word because we're going to use all these big words up in the pitch. Dr. Flowers holds a doctorate in public health from the Graduate School and University Center CUNY, as well as a BA in psychology and an MPH degree from George Washington University. I will probably never call you Sarah either because I'm like, you're Dr. Flowers. You earned the doctor.
Thank you.
But welcome to the group chat.
I'm so glad to be here. It's nice to see everyone and be in conversation.
We really
Absolutely.
appreciate it. So we chatted about this a little bit offline, and for context for the listeners, we've been in conversation about having Dr. Flowers on the show since August of last year. And you know what? I feel like in a way this might be divine timing because now with everything that's going on with the Supreme Court and a potential overturn of Roe, we are happy to have you here to discuss this with us, but obviously all very disheartened by what's happening. And so I definitely wanted to first just ask you, how you're feeling, what your sentiments are, kind of like set the mood of the conversation, and then also just get understanding of like how Planned Parenthood is thinking about this as well before we kind of jump into other topics that we have for our conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. Abortion access is, at top of mind for so many of us. I think that there are so many feelings running deeply through all of us. I mean, for those of us who've worked in the field of sexual and reproductive health, I have for my entire career. This is frankly shocking and horrifying. As of right now, we know that abortion remains legal. It is still your right to get an abortion, should that be something that you seek. And honestly, at Planned Parenthood and with so many of our partners in the sexual and reproductive health and justice and freedom space, our partners and we have been preparing for every possible outcome of this case for decades, and we're built and we are fighting. We are fighting. I'm sort of pausing because the way it's impacting each of us personally is different. And for me, it was, like how people talk about like fight, flight, freeze.
Yeah.
Like I'm a freezer, right? So like this, for me, this, I was brushing my teeth on that Monday night and my husband texted me the Politico note on my phone, which popped up on my watch maybe or something. And I froze. Like people, others, colleagues and good friends, I mean, I'm not being articulate. I'm sorry. It's just because of the emotion, just like really the complexity of the emotions and this is a real possibility. And also that the opposition has made it incredibly clear. The anti-abortion groups have made it incredibly clear that their ultimate plan is to ban abortion nationwide, which could have a horrific impact on patients in every state in this country if they're able to accomplish that. I think the shorter term impact, if Roe and Casey, of overturning Roe and Casey, is dire. It would mean that 26 states would be poised to swiftly move to ban abortion. That means 36 million women. And just to be clear, I'm using the term women because the data around abortion uses the gendered term women. But we know that all people need and access abortions. And nearly half of women of reproductive age, which is ages 18 to 49 in the US, and more people who can become pregnant could soon lose abortion access if these precedents are overturned. For me, it also, in addition to having worked in this field, I am an alum of the New York Abortion Access Fund. And so I was a board member. I am proud that work was pivotal in my professional development and my commitment to this work, the things that I learned around the needs that people have for abortion access. And I'm in New York State, right? So like what's really happening for folks who are doing this work in places like Texas, who've been living under SB 8 since last year. The other piece is that I also think about how it affects the future generations, the young folks, right? And folks, as I mentioned, of reproductive age, but my own child is a person with a uterus. And what is this world that we are leaving for our young people? I'm shocked, but not surprised. I'm horrified. And I really think about all the young people in my life and what this will mean for their future. I recently wrote an article about how I talked to my daughter about her body, which we can share with you. It was posted on parents.com, but really thinking about drawing the connections between sex education, reproductive rights, thinking about consent and safety, relationships, pleasure, bodily autonomy, and what that looks like for different age groups. But all of those pieces are sort of swirling for me and like really, really showing up in our work, but also in our daily lives, our personal lives. The last piece I would just share for folks is that there's opportunities for folks who really care deeply about this issue and want their voices heard to get involved. And so want to make sure folks are aware that on May 14th, there will be a national day of action for supporters to show up across the country alongside a broad group of coalition partners with a clear call: bans off our bodies. And so folks can go to bansoff.org for more information and to mobilize. We can help. Folks can go to abortionfinder.org to help people find abortion care, and folks can share their story. The link is, if they have an abortion story that they're interested in sharing and amplifying this experience and this reality, they can go to ppact.io /share story. So we'll share that information with you, but just wanted to make sure folks know that there's opportunities to get involved, be heard, and get it in the fight. Join us.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing those very personal emotions and those calls to actions. I think in these kinds of moments when people feel at a loss and in that sort of stuck place that you spoke about, that frozen place, it can be really powerful to come together with others and just feel like you're getting your voice out, your feelings out. So we'll definitely be sure to share that with our followers. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, I have to second that. Like, I was like, oh my God, she's gonna make me cry because I was just like, I can just feel the emotions off of you. And yeah, this is such a, I think that what's particularly saddening for me about all of this is, aside from, you know, what the outcome is, that this stigma around abortion, which is already like a very hard decision to make, a lot of like the guilt that's carried with that. And so, you know, when you start to have conversations around like policy and your body and your choices and your decisions, like that probably doesn't help a lot of women that are already going through like a very emotional time. So,
Well, you know, if I may, I would also just sort of like to tease apart this notion that choosing to have an abortion is always a difficult decision. And so it may not be. It may be the right decision, the swift decision, the easy decision, the I'm not blinking twice, you know, sign me up decision. And all of those experiences are legit in the same way that we all have different reactions and feelings and emotions about any other circumstance in life. It's a part of life. It has always been a part of life.
I really appreciate you saying that, because I don't think people talk about that enough, like the range and
Which
those
part?
emotions. That for some women, it might feel like the swift decision, the right decision, just a necessary decision and action.
Or just simply their choice.
Yeah.
Like they want to get one.
Right. And I think that there's a piece where we have the opportunity, I mean, you all and your platform in particular have an opportunity to disrupt even those, like we're making assumptions that something is hard. And that's, you know, I wasn't trying to criticize your statement, but I feel like there is an opportunity to educate folks that this is not, I mean, I think, I'm going to quote you some wrong data. I believe, I believe that after cesarean section, abortion is the most common reproductive health procedure.
Wow.
And I'm not quoting numbers there, but it is, I believe it is incredibly common. 1 in 4 women get abortions. This is so many of us, and they are normal parts of our lives, and people like, there's so much data that I don't need to necessarily be you know, sitting here spouting and then accidentally saying incorrect data, but but I think that it's just really, this is a normal part of healthcare. This is a normal part of things that people need, and we just need to remember that it's not dangerous. It is a built-in component of the full spectrum of healthcare that people of reproductive age need.
Yeah. And to be honest, thank you for saying that, because I'm probably influenced by my own kind of understandings of the stigmas around it. And so you're absolutely right. And I think that that's a good point to highlight as well. I don't have the information in front of me, so I'll put this in the show notes, but the Darkest Hue, a friend of the podcast, did a really interesting post around kind of some of the history of abortion. And again, I don't have it in front of me. I don't know everything for facts, but kind of talked about a lot of history of midwives, especially Black women as midwives, caring for white women who were getting abortions. And then when the shift in a lot of medicine, obstetrics and gynecology became like a white man's world. And we talked about Anarcha, Betsy, and Lucy. And the work that was done on Black women's bodies and even studying that field. And so there's so much in thinking about, like, particularly, and that's why I'm really glad that you're here, because in your bio, it highlights, particularly youth of color, how our rights, our bodies have just been kind of like political playgrounds for so long. So
there's also some like misinformation, I feel like, because you just said that it's like not dangerous. And I've always been under the perception or understanding that it was somehow that getting it would like harm your reproductive system.
It's completely safe, and there's no data that shows that there's any impact on future childbearing.
Wow. How did that
It's one of
narrative
the
come into my
safest
brain?
medical
Propaganda.
procedures.
Wow.
It's crazy.
And
It
it's
really
also,
is.
I'll also jump in and say, most abortions happen early in pregnancy, and those procedures are super quick. Like this is not like, I say this because what's coming up for me is a conversation that I wrote about in that article that I mentioned, which is my family and I were at brunch in Brooklyn last summer, I believe, and we saw an anti-abortion protest go over the Brooklyn Bridge,
Wow.
and you
Oh,
could read the
yes.
signs
I've seen a few of
from
those.
where we were sitting. And so my child, who can read, asked me what those signs meant. And so I ended up at brunch explaining all of the things around that group of people wants to restrict people's ability to make decisions about their own body, and that our family believes that each person makes their own choices for their body. And so really like, but in that conversation, she asked me what is the procedure like? Right. And so explaining that there's two ways that you can do it, that you can have a medical procedure where a doctor or a nurse, empties the uterus, or you can have use medication that will expel, contents of the uterus at home. And there's a privacy element there. But overarchingly, I was able to explain to the, at the time, I believe she was 8, like, there's, she asked, does it hurt? And I said, well, there's cramping. Different people's bodies feel different levels of discomfort. You can take medicine before. Some people choose to go to sleep. But it's very quick. Like in 10 minutes, you're like going to recover and you're going to go home and feel back to yourself, soon thereafter. And so this real opportunity to just also demystify experiences really helps, I hope, to pull us out from behind the shame that this has been shrouded in for so many of us, the secrecy that so many of us experience, not just around abortion, but around sex and sexuality. There's so many opportunities to just talk really clearly about things and take the secrecy away from it, so that it doesn't have to be something that you're whispering about or feel like you have to whisper to tell your story.
Yeah.
Totally.
All right, y'all. It's time for the group chat.
Totally.
That kind of, if we are ready to transition, makes me think about transitioning into kind of what we originally planned to discuss with you, which is just how you got involved in sex education and a bit of your background, because it's super interesting. And I think that your point around like destigmatizing, demystifying, like us being able to have conversations openly around sex education is so important. And I think that's going to help so much with this upcoming generation in being able to, think about things such as like assault, access to, healthcare, abortion,
Consent.
pleasure, consent. Like I feel like because so much is like, it's this secret little box of sex that nobody wants to talk about, this is where shit like really blows up. So I'd just love to kind of jump into just more about you and your background.
Sure. So thank you for reading my bio so carefully.
Bomb bio.
So you've heard about my education. I got my start in high school. I ran what we called then an AIDS Awareness Day, and that was like 1995. And I sort of got hooked in this work and thinking about young people and centering young people's voices. I went to college after and got both a bachelor's and a master's degree, and then went on to run a teen pregnancy prevention program in Washington, D.C., which I absolutely loved. It was amazing. I still think of those young people who are now grown. And then I ended up moving to New York City, ran a youth HIV prevention and sex education program, and then ended up getting into a doctoral program and applying for a doctorate and completing that work. And so the first sentence of my doctoral program application essay read, "I want to change the way sex education is taught in this country." And to be honest with you, this role at Planned Parenthood Federation of America, Vice President of Education and Training, is, I'm hoping that I, along with so many of my incredible colleagues and team, are, and not just at the national office, but also the affiliate departments of education across the country, are really working together to do just that. So it's incredibly exciting for me.
Well, then that kind of transitioned me into my question about you, like, always feeling tied to this. This started in high school. I'm also curious, like, how have you seen the change of sex education from when you were in high school to what it looks like now?
Yeah, there's been a lot of changes. I mean, one of the things that's exciting about public health as a field for me is that it's not like history. It's the stuff that you study doesn't stay the same, right? That it's constantly, because we're really talking about humanity, it's constantly evolving, iterating, updating, changing. Like there's always like this new interesting approach. And so the same holds true for sex education. I grew up in the 90s. The sex education I got was, a year after I'd gotten my period, but not told anyone. I was an early bloomer, or whatever you say. But like I hadn't shared with my friends. So there's shame there that we can just like name now, right?
Totally. I felt the same way.
Yeah. And I remember being pulled into two different rooms according to the gender we were assigned at birth, right? And one room was talked about periods, and the other room was talked about, I don't know, what did they talk about? Wet dreams? I don't know.
I was gonna say, like, sure. Masturbating.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Wet dreams, erections. I don't know. So that, and then I feel like it evolved some from my experience to what I was teaching in the early 2000s, right? And so we expanded somewhat and tried to, be more clear, talk about values. But it's even, the field continues to broaden, expand, talk about synergies, incorporate the elements that you named around the ways that like systemic and institutional racism shows up in sex ed, and how can sex educators be trained now to dismantle that, identify it and disrupt it in sessions and workshops, but also really thinking about gender identity, sexual orientation, fluidity, consent, pleasure. There's so much more than sort of like the old school, tab B into slot A sort of conceptualization. I mean, really recognizing that the definition of sex isn't penis and vagina sex anymore, that we don't talk about sex only in terms of reproduction. So there's just a lot, and the young people continue to lead us and show us that they're continuing to demonstrate fluidity and defining the ways they want to be seen and the information that they want access to. So it's much broader now. And the skill set is evolving too, right? So it's not just a question of like, make sure you say no loudly or something, but it's really around unpacking what consent looks like, what it feels like to receive a no, right? And I use the analogy that really this shows up very early in life. This is not something that we need to wait until junior year of high school, or God forbid, freshman year of college. We're really talking about foundational building blocks. And sex education, I often compare to the way we teach math. We don't start with calculus. We start with 0, 1, 2, 3, right? And so there's really foundational elements that show up in sex education from a very young age. I'm talking like when you have a child who's in diapers and you are changing them, you can say, I'm going to change your diaper now, right? We can let the child start to have some influence or some awareness, right? Naming body parts, their actual names, rather than saying, I don't know, my mom, I'm not Polish. My mom called it a dupa. What is a dupa? I think that's a Polish word, but yeah, those things. And also thinking about consent, right? So like for young kids, it's maybe, I mean, I think about being raised in the Black community and speaking to people, greeting folk, right? When you come in the room, et cetera. And I wanted my child to be polite, but I don't want her to be touched when she doesn't care to be touched. And so raising her to use her voice to greet folks, to say hello, but she didn't have to hug people. Like, just because you're, you know, auntie so-and-so remembers you, that doesn't mean a 4-year-old remembers them. You know what I mean? So that feels like a stranger all upon people.
Yeah.
So I just think that there's like little elements where we build building blocks, and then those show up, those skills we continue to hone and refine and strengthen those skills. And then we're accustomed to expecting that if I tell you I don't want to be touched there, that I'm expecting that you hear my voice clearly, right? That we've set that expectation young, so that when there's situations later, we already know that if I say what I say, that I'm being clear about my body and my boundaries.
Totally. So much just came up for me as you were speaking. First thing is, Chelsea and I both have backgrounds in education, particularly with teaching like pre-K and like first grade aged kids. And I think it was last year, there was this kind of scandal going around in private schools in New York, where there was this sex education teacher who was teaching younger kids about what it feels like to have an erection or to self-pleasure. And families were really disturbed by that. I don't know if you heard about this whole thing.
I did, and I actually was on a meeting with that person today.
Oh, wow.
Interesting.
So what, do you have any thoughts on kind of the messaging around that?
Well, I believe, if again, don't have it in front of me, so let's all caveat this, but I believe it was around an Amaze video, and an Amaze is a series of videos, educational, sex education videos that are created by 3 well-known, well-respected sex education organizations. The collaboration is SECUS, which is Sex Ed for Social Change, Advocates for Youth, and Answer. And I believe that the video, so they have Amaze and Amaze Junior. I don't remember the ages, so let's just give me a little wiggle room. I believe that Amaze Junior is like 4 to 8, and maybe Amaze is like 8 to 11 or something like that. So give me, you know, not exactly sure. We can look that up. They're an incredible video series. They are in multiple languages. They're streamed around the world. And there is a video that talks to I believe the younger cohort. I can't remember if it's I don't remember which one of the cohorts around, you know, self-touch. And I went and watched the video when this happened. And frankly, the video was great. And sex education is not teaching pornography at all. So we need to be really clear that sex education is teaching understanding your body, how it works. And there's amazing gifts that our bodies are capable of giving us. And we're not talking about little kids orgasming. That's not a thing, right? So we're really talking about people raising an alarm. When I would be curious as to, did they see the video or just hear something that they found alarming? And then did they go to the educator and ask how the conversation unfolded in the classroom? Because people are invited into spaces in a lot of cases. And so there's really a lot of opportunity to, whenever I was teaching in classrooms, I always made myself available. And I know so many other sex educators do this. Make yourself available. We will answer questions. We will share what we cover and what questions typically come up during that workshop and how we respond to them. And I have never, when I've done that, had a parent say, I'm pulling my kid out. I've always had parents say, I'm so grateful that you're here starting this conversation because I wasn't sure how to.
Do you think, though, in terms of like sex education, that there is some sort of communication that should happen with the parents? I know we don't do it with math, for example, or reading, like the teacher never consults the parent, like, we're going to be teaching about algebra this year, you know, that's just what they do. Do you think with sex education, though, there should be some sort of consultation with parents?
I'll tell you what I think. I think sex education should be as important as math. I think it should be funded. I think the people who are providing the education should be trained. We have national sex education standards that you can sort of crosswalk the curricula that you are implementing with what these standards are, and they are scaffolded by grade level and what's developmentally appropriate and what the topics are. So in my opinion, it would be amazing if young people got all of the things that they need in school, and that all young people got them in all schools, that you didn't have to go to a school that you pay tuition to in order to get sex education that is shame-free, medically accurate, and encompassing your whole self. The other piece that I would say is I do think that there's an opportunity to really help families understand what sex education does and what we're hoping, the skill set that we're hoping young people gain. I'll share with you in conversations with my husband, you can imagine we talk about this a lot. And in conversations with my husband, he said, it's really interesting what you teach and what you stand for, because, different maybe from math, the things that you learn in sex education, not just about how your body works, but really about like the way that you're going to conduct yourself in the world, the way that you're going to, care for yourself, have a relationship and an understanding with yourself, have relationships with others. And those don't only mean sexual relationships, but just really foundationally how you want to interact with others, be respected, show respect, and be nurtured, right? Find joy. Those are things that young people do, especially as they're getting older, independently. So there's this opportunity to really think. I have my kid is in 4th grade. I'm seeing more and more independence week after week. And she's lately taken to telling me I'm in her business.
Yeah.
You've heard it here first.
Oh my
I'm
God.
in her business. But I think that the pieces here are, what are the skills that we can help young people to develop? And parents are the key. And often, parents and guardians and caring adults are the people in the home setting, the home community, are the first people that are helping young people develop these skills, right? But what are the ways that we can help young people so that when they are out forging these new, relationships, and finding that independence, that they're doing it in a way where they're like, oh, I practiced this in that workshop. I feel good about making this choice, or I practiced how to make a decision and I weighed 3 options and I thought that the outcome of this one is going to be the best and the most realistic. Like there's a lot of really concrete considerations and skills that we're teaching that I don't know any other arena in life where we get to, sort of teach thoughtful decision-making that aligns with your values and what you're driving towards.
Yeah, it's making me think a lot about just overall how stigmatized sex is in terms of like when you're allowed to talk about it or when someone's deemed ready to talk about it. But like I was fully masturbating at like 4 or 5 years old, like vividly remember that. And like I knew it was like something I shouldn't do. Like I wasn't like in front of people doing that, but like I had a feeling of like, ooh, like this is a secret. Where did I get that from? I have no idea.
Babies in the womb touch their genitals.
Right. And like, it's
That's
just something
something. And
yeah.
Listen, there's a lot of nerve endings down there.
And it's like wild to realize like, at some point I learned that like, this was like secretive and then was so secretive about everything I did sexually go forward. Right. Whereas like, if it was more open, I might've been able to be like, hey mom, can I get herpes from sucking a dick with or without a condom? Because I was definitely Googling it before I went to Court Street movie theater and like was gonna go give head to some boy that I met. How much easier would it have been if I just asked my mom?
It's closed now.
I know.
Thank God there were a lot of BJs in the back.
That for sure.
But and like how much easier would have been if we could have that conversation. Sorry.
No, I mean, listen, the conversations, first of all, I'm just sort of like thinking of the pieces, the elements I want to share. First of all, babies in the womb touch their genitals. There's a lot of nerve endings there. It feels away. Let's just, right? I think the other piece is it is so many children touch themselves, take off a diaper on some kids, their hands immediately shoot down, right? So what are the opportunities as the caring adult? Can we say, oh, I bet that feels good. That's something that we do in private spaces. So you may do that either in the bathroom or in the bedroom. We don't do that on the couch. I know it feels good, but I invite you to do it in a private space, right? Like, what are the ways that we can sort of like bring in the other lessons that we want kids to learn? Because the other piece that's so interesting about sex and sexuality and being in this field is I have talked to so many people where I've heard a plethora of stories about what type of sex education folks did or didn't get, or what sort of shaming experiences they may have had growing up. And I have never heard one person say, I don't want my kid to have a, mutually fulfilling experience whenever that time is right for them. Maybe not as a young age, but this is a part of natural developmental development. Is that a thing? Developmental development, natural development for, growing up. And so I've never heard someone say that they didn't want the people that they care about to have fulfilling relationships when they were ready. Right. And so what is our opportunity to think, well, how do I set that in motion earlier? You don't just flip a switch at 19, right? Those messages that we got around shame are sinking in and shaping all of us. So what are the ways that the caring adults in the world of these young people, and listen, it's not just the kids. How much in the texting cipher and stuff do we have to unpack stuff for one another when we're grown? There's so many things.
Yeah. I wanted to circle back on what was coming up earlier when you were mentioning consent and kind of learning those boundaries early in life. And we've talked about this, I think, on past episodes, how consent can sometimes feel complicated because it can change many times throughout an encounter with someone.
Oh yeah,
a physical encounter. Yeah, we were like, should there be an app where like we have to sign a waiver and then we say like, okay, it changes, like, and it's not always something verbal. It's like also having to pick up on somebody's bodily cues. And
I mean, there's just a lot of checking in and just, I mean, one of the things that we make sure that we're teaching around consent is it's constant, and that we're trying to help folks to understand that this doesn't have to be like whack and ruin the mood, right? You can actually say things like, is this still feeling good to you? Did that feel good to you in the first place? Do you want to try a thing? Are you interested? Would you like to pause? Get some water? Like there's all of these opportunities, the way that we would check in on folks' well-being anyway, to weave that conversation into the regular dialogue between friends and partners.
Completely.
I'm also curious, getting specific around sex education and how it like differs, especially with women of color. We talk a lot about this concept of adultification on the show, just to kind of explanatory comma, stealing a code switch note, but like adultification is kind of like the way in which young women of color in their teens maybe like sexualize, hypersexualize in a different way than their white counterparts, especially. And sometimes develop differently. Our bodies are very different. And so does that come up in conversations that you're having and thinking about sex education? We will hear a lot in particularly Black community, like, oh, she's fast. Oh, she's this. Oh, you better. I'm sure Glynn, people told her to hide that butt. Or, I had huge boobs, like hide the boobs, like, what is
as
that
if we had control over any of those things.
Right.
And then I felt so much shame and was afraid. And I was like, what's on my butt? Like, it was terrifying.
Yeah. So is sex education different for women of color?
Is it different? The content shouldn't be. The approach should be aware of and consider that reality. So when I spoke about the way that sex educators are like a skill set that they're trained in is understanding the complexity of how racism in this country and the way that I mean, it happens to a lot of marginalized communities and identities, right? That there's a different element of the way that different identities have been sort of like sexualized in some way, shape, or form. I think for Black girls and femmes, there's so much history because of slavery in this country. There's so many assumptions, and frankly, like, one, it's really important for sex educators to have done their homework on what that history is and how it shows up today. I think there's also an element where really centering, there are incredible sex educators of color across this country. And so really, what are the ways that, what are the work that those folks are doing, and how can we apprentice with them? How can we learn from them to see what's being done differently to center communities of color? I think there's also a piece where, in my experience, you know, juxtaposing, there's so much literature on this, but like, I'm just sort of thinking of one book where they looked at the type of sex education that was provided in 3 different junior high schools. One was a predominantly white, affluent private school, I think, and then one was a white public school, maybe less affluent, and one was a Black, less affluent public school. And there's the difference in the spectrum in that book, and that book is years old, but the difference in the spectrum, the book is called Risky Lessons, I believe. The difference in the spectrum was that there was a presumption that the white affluent kids could explore and express themselves and like try a thing, right? And that level of freedom is not afforded our Black children. And we know that in so many areas of the way that we are raised. And I think that it is the responsibility of sex educators today to identify those judgmental assumptions, those racist stereotypes, and pull them apart before they implement a curriculum or implement a workshop. And, you know, what are the things that we as, again, I keep coming back to the same question, what are the things that we as caring adults can do in our own communities to disrupt those pieces, right? So like, what are the things like, we don't need to comment on people's bodies. You know, that new thing that we're telling each other, if you can't fix it in 10 seconds, don't mention it. Like, if it's not a piece of something left over from my lunch and my teeth, don't mention it. Like, right? Like, that's just like, that's the new golden rule or whatever they used to call it. So how are we thinking about that? How are we thinking about like freedom and like thinking about the way Black joy is an act of resistance? Like, that can show up in so many ways. But I think like we just have an opportunity to disrupt those racist assumptions, and they show up everywhere. They show up in the way that, you know, kids' bodies are policed in schools. We show up in the way that the assumptions are made, you know, calling people fast, looking at their body, making comments on their body shape or what age they developed. Or, I mean, I think about freedom to experiment, so to speak. And I think about if you had a 16-year-old, I mean, now we're just really talking about like, I'm just like sketching out people that I, you know, not real people. But like if there was a 16-year-old tall, skinny Black dude who was experimenting with weed and a 16-year-old tall, skinny white dude who's experimenting with weed, which one of them is experimenting and which one of them is a thug or a drug dealer or whatever? Like, that's not why we have to stop with these things. And it's not, I'm not saying we're doing it to ourselves. But I think that there's an opportunity to really examine and disrupt these patterns.
Definitely. Yeah. I am slightly shifting. I know we've been talking to you for a bit, but I'm curious on your thoughts on hookup culture. It's something that I feel has like come and gone and come and gone and come and gone. And there's obviously like stigma associated with that, and could be something that is discussed in sex education. And it kind of came from this article that you guys had shared. I'm not going to get deep into the article. I'll link it in there, but if not, if we go into that, we'll be here for like 10,000 years. But I was just wondering, like, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, listen, as long as everybody's consenting and having fun, there's nothing wrong with hooking up. Awesome, great. Get yours, hope they get theirs. Everybody do be great. I think that there's a lot to, again, unpack. I think I'd love to look at the power structure and the media narratives, right? And like who's benefiting from hookup culture? What does that even mean? What do we mean when we say hookup culture? I might have one thing in mind. Each of you might have a different thing in mind. So how are we really defining that? It sounds to me like the ways that some conservative outlets, they try to invoke panic about young people having too much sex without acknowledging that this is like a normal part of human development. If that is something that you choose to be is sexual, right? People may identify as asexual, but should someone identify as sexual in whatever way that shows up for them, that is a completely normal part of humanity that we share with everyone else, even if it looks different in each of us, right? The other piece is like this notion of hookup culture sounds like somebody's trying to get something from somebody else, as opposed to two people mutually agreeing that this is something that they're enjoying and want to do together and both getting, pleasure from. So I'm not really in love with that. And I think for me, what comes up is that sex, when I was coming up, was framed as something that boys took from girls, that you should guard, as though it was going to change you. There was no discussion of same sex or same gender loving couples around sex when I was growing up. And it also like gives this notion that by having sex, you're a different person, which is not a thing, right? This like notion of like, virginity is a social construct, right? You're not changed because whatever, maybe you also scraped your knee, like whatever, you're still you, right? So I don't love the framing that I think we have an opportunity to redesign this narrative around sex as though it's when traditionally people with uteruses or femme identified folks, women, femmes, it's as though they had something they had to protect, guard, and somebody else was going to take something from them, like a winning losing scenario, which I don't think that doesn't vibe with me, right? Like I think you have this body, and whatever your body is capable of doing and that gives you pleasure, be great, right? Maybe you don't do it always on the couch, maybe you do it behind a closed door, but be great, right? I think those are my top line reactions.
Yeah, there's something you were saying about like this concept of having virginity taken and how that is not a thing. Someone recently told me that blue balls are not real. And I was like, because it's based in this idea that like the sex was not owed to you to begin with. So how did somebody give you blue balls? Like you were aroused and then you did not have sex, period.
But there is a pain, right? That is real, right?
Yes, but then like you relieve yourself,
but you can
also
do that. You're like, you don't need someone else to relieve that.
Right.
It's maybe a little discomfort, but like, I don't possess a penis, so I don't know what that necessarily feels like. But I think that this notion that it's owed to you by a person other than yourself deserves, like, that's, I think what you're getting at there.
Yeah. I was like,
really poignant.
Yeah, it shouldn't be. Yeah, that's true. I wonder though, in sex education, is there any need, especially when talking with young people, need to talk about not just like the scientific part or like the more like literal things, but also like the social emotional things? Because I can remember myself when I lost my virginity, it was very traumatic. And I wish someone had told me, you might have some feelings after this and you might feel X, Y, or Z. So maybe think about who the person is and like, is that someone that you really want to do that with, or whatever. Is that a part of the education?
Yes, and may I, not to, I want to like sort of give like a little bit of a content warning around sexual assault. But I think it's also really important to remember that some people aren't offered a choice to,
Have sex for the
engage,
first time.
right, have sex
Yeah.
for the first time. And I think we have to sort of disabuse ourselves of that assumption when we're in spaces, because we're then not including everyone's experience. So I think that you're absolutely right. And in all of the sex education I've ever taught, there was always real deep discussion and ongoing discussion around feelings, values, preferences, decision-making, and how that's a continued piece. But I think it's also really important to remember that when we're framing it, we have a responsibility to any survivors in the space for whom that decision was made for them.
Yeah, I think in my thoughts around like the hookup culture, a lot of my thoughts in the educational portion is around like the emotional, because I feel like a lot of times sex is also used in like manipulative manners, or like, oh, I'm taking this from you, or you're giving this to me, or like it seems like it. And we see this even today. Actually, Summer Walker posted something that I thought was interesting, that was like, these days men want your body and women want your money. But whatever, I'm going on a tangent.
That's hilarious.
But it was interesting because I feel like some of the stigma around like hookup culture is that the assumption is like the girl is giving something up and the guy is winning something. It's never like a mutual exchange, or that the girl is seeking more of an emotional connection while the guy just wants to get off. And like, that's not necessarily always the case. Sometimes that can be the case. And how can you be able to navigate understanding like all your emotions behind that if you're never taught that? That's why people get caught up in a lot of stuff.
Yeah, and I think that also there's some gender role expectations there that need to be sort of unpacked, and some, I don't want to only say toxic masculinity, but some toxic expectations of behavior that everyone has feelings, everyone can either be vulnerable or choose to not show vulnerable sides of themselves. And I think it's really like, when we think about healthy relationships, there's so many opportunities to really explore what these conversations look like, role play, and practice having conversations, and exploring to get, with a friend or a partner or whatever. I think I also think, you asked earlier about how things have evolved in the different, from the 90s to the 2000s to what we see now. And young people now are way more, I said earlier, like they're way more resistant to being labeled. They're way more, like recognizing that bodies are bodies, and different people have different feel. Like there's much more fluidity in the way that they interact and expect interactions with one another than I think was in previous generations. And so I also wonder, like, what will this look like for, our future teens? You know what I mean? There's so much, it's different than what the expectations were when I was coming up, or maybe when you all were coming up.
That's a really interesting kind of full circle back to how we started this conversation, with kind of those fears that you were sharing for what things look like for our future generations. But then there's also a lot of like hopefulness in the way that they view the world. But, it's scary to imagine the type of world they'll be living in, especially when they have these sorts of views. And, that kind of brings me to this final question that you put here, Sade. What is, Dr. Flowers, what does your utopia look like when you think about how we as a society view sex education, and women's sexual rights?
Well, that is a $1 million question, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean,
Makes me think of your
ultimately,
essay.
ultimately, I want people to feel at home in their own skin. And so that what home might mean for each of us might be different, but how can we, build a world where people get access to information, they're not feeling ashamed or, embarrassment is a feeling, that's a thing, but how do we just sort of embed this element of humanity that everyone has inside of them in some form or fashion, and bring it, it doesn't have to be flashed across a billboard, but I think making it, a regular part of our lives the way it is, but not shrouded in secrecy, right? So building a world where everyone can live their truths and find joy in whatever that might look like for them, is it really important? And I feel like the terminology I just used sounded vague and maybe not sex and sexuality specific, but I think that the real vision is that people also have access. And so access without, I'm rambling. I'm going to pull it back together. Hold on.
No, you're good.
I'm like, yes, I'm
The
following.
piece is be at home and find peace, joy, and, greatness in your body and whatever that looks like for you. I think there's an element here of really also having a world where we've the shame associated with sex and sexuality is something of the past. I want to get to the place where I'm like saying, I remember when, right? Like that it's not a thing anymore. And my, like my kid, this is so silly. My kid, like once, I'm going off tangent. How the paper towels, they have like pick a size ones.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So my kid, once we must have had an old roll that we acquired at the beginning of the pandemic, and it was like the big size paper towel, and I ripped it off and she was like, what is that? And I was like, it's a paper towel. And she was like, why is it so big? And I was like, they used to always be this side. And she was like, what? A waste of paper. Like, it was just hilarious because
I love it.
Because like that was not her reality, that you could have pick a size paper towels, right? So I think to that end, how can we put the shame, the stigma around these elements of our lives in the rearview mirror? How can we let people explore and live their truths in a way that honors who they are without having that critique from community that like we talked about before? And it's not that we don't have, I'm not trying to suggest that, only Black folks or only Black communities have that critique. So many of us and various identities and ethnicities and races and religious beliefs have different things that our families put on us, right? That's just family. Maybe that's the second definition under family somewhere. But like, what are the ways that we can, bring those elements, the things that we want for ourselves and for our children, bring that into today, right? Make those pieces. It doesn't have to be quiet or secret. I had a little, nibbling once say to me, like, we saw people kissing outside of the park when we were walking in New York City. And they were two looked to me like male identified folk. And this young person in my life said, oh, Aunt Sarah, why are those two boys kissing? And I was like, oh, must feel good.
Mm-hmm.
And she was like, but it's two boys. And I was like, aren't they lucky that they found each other and they both wanted to do that? That's so nice.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But like, how do we just bring that into all of the parts of our lives?
Yeah. I love what you said about the comfort in your body. Because you only have one body, and if you I believe in reincarnation, but whatever. One life. Can you imagine how much more fun you could be having?
Well, that's also the piece on shame, right?
Exactly.
Is like how, like, the things that I thought I knew when I was a teenager versus what I know now. I mean, the narrative that I told myself around, where did I get these things from around pleasure? Like, what was I thinking? And it's because no one ever sat me down and explained to me all of the different things that all I knew about my body was about don't get pregnant,
Mhm.
right? And if you get pregnant, and this is another story. I just have a lot of stories. Y'all can cut me off when you're ready. But I remember being 12. So that's like early 90s, maybe or so. 90, yeah, early 90s. Anyways, it was the height of the AIDS epidemic. I lived outside of New York City. I knew about this, I guess. And I remember saying to my mom, and this is, I don't mean the stigma that it's going to sound like here. So it's a 12-year-old in the 1990s talking, but I said to my mom, I'm not going to have sex until I get married because I don't want to, I said, I'm not going to have sex till I get married because I don't want to get pregnant. And my mom said, girl, I can fix pregnancy. I can't fix HIV though. Because at the time, you know, the meds that we had then were not the meds that we have now. People were not living as long as they are now. But I remember being shocked that my mom alluded to abortion, but I don't remember, I didn't know if that was a punishment or a gift that she could fix it. And I think that was confusing to me. Whereas like, we can be real clear with young people. Young people are with it, right? That didn't have to be a mystery that I carried with me into adulthood. I could have just asked her.
Yeah.
Or she could have been more clear. I don't know. And I don't remember, you know, how that conversation came to be or whatever, but like, what are the ways that we can not do something that sounds like a threat? We just can be matter of fact. And that's also the thing about sex and sexuality. It's just a piece of life, you know? Penis, vulva, elbow, these are body parts.
Sometimes
Totally.
certain things go in certain places. The elbow and
If you want them there.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much. Like, I cannot tell you the like genuine privilege I feel like being able to have you on at this time. And I think our listeners are really going to appreciate, you know, everything that you have to say, but also just knowing the work that you're doing and that there are a lot of people doing this work, because I feel we're all in like doom and gloom right now, but knowing that there are people supporting and, you know, hoping that we can have a better future and the future generations can have a better future is very comforting in these times, I would have to say.
Definitely. Thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Flowers. This is really amazing.
Thank you so much. This was a really wonderful way to end my day. Thank you for this really lovely conversation. And it's lovely to speak with all of you.
Likewise.
Thank you.
What would you do?
I do not have a hotline bling today.
No.
But I wanted
what would you do?
Oh, sorry. Whoa. What would you do? I do not have a what would you do today, but I wanted to ask you guys if you saw the Real Kyle sister, aka Ari Fletcher, with her son at her birthday party where there was like hookah and drinks. Yo, Sean, did y'all see that?
I didn't see that, but what are people saying?
Someone made a petition for Yo Sean to go live with G Herbo.
Shut up.
Like literal,
I heard
like
about that.
literal, like the petitions that you can sign online, which I thought was funny, but I was also like, that's kind of wild and fucked up. And so, you know, she went on a live and was like, y'all don't even know what y'all talking about. How they gonna let a 4-year-old in the club? That don't even make no sense. She's like, it was a private party, but I'm like,
wait, is this the what would you do?
yes. So I want to know.
She's getting there. Mm-hmm.
I want to know what your thoughts are on children like at events like that, because I've even seen like people throwing baby showers and they've just been like, they start to get really, really crazy. And I'm not talking about like, you know, a standard baby shower with, you know, Black people, we be drinking, we be loud, we play games, but like there's like hookah in this club and like mad ass.
Was it a club?
thrown.
Wait, ass?
Okay, no, it was like a private venue that she rented out, but it's like it was like dark. It wasn't like lights on.
It was like the club.
It looked like a club environment.
That's a bit much.
That's
Like
the
bottle
club,
service and shit with the
and
kids.
sparklers.
Sparklers around the kids.
No.
I was like,
I'm not mad at hookahs though. I'm not gonna lie. Depending if there's a hookah section, not near the kids. I mean, but that's because I just grew up around people that was smoking. So maybe the people outside smoking cigars in one area.
okay,
cigarette
outside, not
Outside. Were they
inside.
smoking the cigar and
Barbecue setting.
blowing the smoke in your face?
No. An indoor setting. Yeah.
No, mine is a no. No, you don't bring a kid in a club. That's weird.
No.
Yeah, I was like, even if it's a private party, girl,
Yeah, no.
Like maybe he could have celebrated with you earlier, and then he needs to
Yeah,
go
why do you
home.
even want your kid there?
Maybe
First
she
of
couldn't
all.
It was
get a
her
babysitter.
birthday.
Yeah, but have the you know, like a luncheon, and then you go do the grown shit.
I don't think she knows what a luncheon is.
Oh damn.
Yeah.
It had the internet in an uproar. She was basically like, "You can't tell me how to parent my kid."
Oh god.
And I was just like, I'm sorry, like no way you cut it. This is not appropriate. I'm sorry. Like
She seems a little problematic because wasn't she having problems with his current baby mama, who's Fabulous's stepdaughter, Emily
Yes.
B's daughter, and like it was like a pillow fight or something. And
Huh?
yeah, she was like, she hit my son. Oh my
yeah, and like they were having a pillow fight, and like the little boy went home and was like, I don't like her. And it's like, oh, y'all abusing my kid. Like,
Oh my god, that's ridiculous.
seems like she's a little
And that should not be on the internet.
No.
exactly.
That's
If
crazy.
you were actually concerned, file a
Yeah.
police report.
That's wild. She's
Yeah.
probably very young. Is she young?
Probably.
She looks old.
She looks older, but I don't.
The girls be looking old these days.
I mean, she
Yeah.
does way too much to her face and that body, but
Wow, this fucking terrible.
yeah, sorry, ladies. Don't. If you bring your child to your private party, I'm taking them home. I am gonna be like, I'm not clapping ass in front of your 4-year-old. Send that nigga home.
Yeah. Oh my
Yeah.
god. Well, I think I've talked about this before. Yeah, actually, yeah.
I know. You gonna talk about your cousins?
Yeah, I'm like, my family be doing stuff, and then the kids be saying all the stuff that everybody be saying.
kids-
and they repeat everything.
Of
They
course
say
they do.
every single thing.
Oh, I didn't know that
They
part.
be saying wild stuff.
What? It's actually
Foul
kind of funny when
mouth.
kids curse.
Foul mouth.
They see and hear everything. Like the next thing you know, the little boy, I mean, I don't wish this on him, but like he's gonna be like playing house and he's gonna like get the hookah.
Yo, see them making a fake hookah.
Oh my
For
god.
the babies. Like
Doing
the
that
Fisher
as
Price.
a little play
Fisher
pretend.
Price hookah. Oh my god. Okay, guys, let's wrap this up because it's been long.
Yes, let's pop on over to the Patreon.
So if you want to laugh a little more, come to the Patreon. It's Black Girls Texting. Everything is Black Girls Texting. We still have a few pieces of merch. I think we
do.
don't have any more of the big sizes because people have been coming up to me like, I want a merch, but there's no more XLs. Is that true?
There's no more XLs. The larges are running low.
Damn.
Listen,
But I the medium and the
The
smalls
girls like them
are cute.
oversized.
No, but the medium is oversized. And the small is oversized if you're an extra small.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, there's no extra small. But yeah,
Well, we're gonna drop some new shit for the summer, right?
yes. Now I'm mindful that the girls,
Because a lot
but
of
then
people
watch.
asking
Then
me.
what's the t-shirt thing on one and fucking
Small.
medium and small? I can't keep up with y'all.
Yeah. Well, this is all research, we'll keep notes on,
Yes.
You're a buyer, you know what's supposed to be
Think about
done.
your numbers and your
Make my
stock and
adjustments.
get that
Yeah,
Excel sheet
inventory
going
and,
and
right.
Shut
you
up.
know.
Goodbye.
Get that Excel.
Goodbye.
But follow us on Black Girls Texting on every platform except for Twitter, in which we're Black Girls Text 1. Love ya. Bye.
Bye.